This was my identity.
Nobody talks about how freaking hard it is to be a dentist. What most people talk about is how this affects the patient. What nobody talks about is how this affects us. Dentistry is ready for this. Now is really the time.
Welcome to Wellness in Dentistry. I'm joined by my good friend and co-host, Dr. Kyle Stanley, who is a dentist, tech entrepreneur, speaker, and researcher. And I am your other host, Dr. Martin Mendelsohn. I'm a disabled dentist, coach, speaker, and author. In fact, my first book, One Move Makes All the Difference, is available right now for pre-order wherever books are sold. And together, Kyle and I have helped thousands of dental professionals pursue wellness in dentistry. If you're unfamiliar with us, we invite you to check out our respective links, websites, and course offerings on wellnessindentistry.com. And speaking of which, we're super excited that just in the coming weeks from this release of this podcast on August 8th and 9th, we will be joining forces once again in person on August 8th and 9th at Glidewell in Irvine, California for Lightside Live. This is a transformative, in-person, in-depth course with 12 CE credits that helps really breathe life into Kyle's framework, his Ripple framework, and my coaching and facilitation and communication techniques. And so if you're looking to hang out with us and have a good time in August, I recommend you check it out. So we're fun. What can I say?
I recommend that too.
How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great.
Yeah,
Last night I ran my mentally resilient dentist masterclass that I do it
cool.
a few times a year live.
Yep.
And it's crazy is we had 1,100 people from 21 different countries
Wow.
sign up.
That's amazing.
And I think it's just a testament or it's a testament to the need that
Yeah,
is here in our profession for this, right? There's
totally.
not a lot of people talking about wellness and talking about mental resilience and communication styles and leadership. And to see people, I mean, we had people that it was 5 in the morning. They either woke up early or stayed up late to see this live. I think it just shows what is needed. And so for the
Yeah,
people that are listening to this, that were also listening last night, or maybe you watched the recording, if you want to go deeper into any of the things that I mentioned last night, we go very deep in Lightside Live. So love to see you guys there.
absolutely. That'd be super fun.
Yeah, and today's a fun one. Today's our first time after, I don't know, over 60 episodes
Yep.
doing listener questions. We've had listener questions come in and we've either forgotten to answer them or we've been meaning to do it and then we didn't and we finally just compiled a few of them and we're going to go through some of these questions today. And I think this is fun because we appreciate you guys reaching out. You know, some of you DM us on Instagram, some of you send us emails, but we definitely appreciate the feedback. Some people are going through some challenging things, and I feel like we can give some advice here. So the
Yeah,
first one, Martin, I want to summarize the first one because it's kind of a long question, but
sure. And I want to be clear too. It's not that we haven't answered the questions, we just haven't done it publicly. So
correct. Yes, yes, yes. Right.
we always answer the questions, just not
Yes.
publicly. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. So this question basically said that this doctor has been listening to our podcast and they're learning a lot and they've been
Yep.
through burnout and they're really trying to use open-ended questions like we've talked about. Like one of the things that I learned from you is, am I hearing you right? What I'm hearing is
Yep.
XYZ. And this doctor was being told by their staff that they sound condescending
Yeah.
when they do that.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on this?
So my thought on it is, first of all, I'm curious if it's the staff or it's the doctor that thinks they're being perceived as condescending. I do kind of wonder that based on how it was written. What I would also say is it can be affected by what comes before the open-ended question. So the way I was taught as a coach and the way I teach teams is three different types of listening. And I'll just focus on the two on the end. So the two on the end, because those are the most easy to understand because they're very much at opposite poles of the spectrum, is subjective listening and intuitive listening. So subjective listening is you make it all about you.
You're just waiting to
Intuitive list,
talk, basically, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And you're you're not listening to what the person's actually saying. You're only thinking about what it is you're going to say next.
Okay.
That would be if you're sitting there listening to somebody and all you're thinking about is what you're going to say, you're subjectively listening.
I've been guilty of that.
No, so have I. And intuitive listening is kind of reading between the lines. So let me give you two examples. In subjective listening, if a patient came in and said, I'm really worried about this crown prep today. Subjective listening would be, oh, you have nothing to worry about. Dr. Stanley is wonderful. He did 2 crowns on me and I didn't feel a thing. You'll be great. You made it about you. You didn't address their concern. You didn't even validate their concern, and you just kind of bulldozed over it. So if your open-ended question is after that kind of statement, that can very much seem condescending. But if you were to answer something like this, where you say, sounds like you're really concerned about this, and I really appreciate you sharing that with me. Many people are really concerned about the dentist. What are you most concerned about? That's a completely different statement and a completely different preamble, which was the word I kept looking for and I couldn't find. That it's a completely different preamble than the first one. So, like the first one, just to go back, if you said, "Oh, you have nothing to worry about. Dr. Stanley's amazing. He did 2 crowns on me. What do you think you're worried about?" Like they're going to shut down immediately. So there is a knack and a nuance to what comes before the question to really seem genuine and have sincere intent.
I see this all the time on Instagram comments
Hmm.
where people are giving a compliment to someone, but still making it about themselves.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, love what you're doing, been doing this for the last 15 years too. It's like, I think that I used to be guilty of this, and that thankfully I had the realization and was
Hmm.
able to recognize this,
Yeah. Yeah.
that I really try not to do this now. And that explanation that you gave was really great because I think there's people that would actually train team members to talk and say exactly what you just
Yeah.
said in the bad way. But
Correct.
what you said was so much better and so much more human the second way you
Yeah.
said it.
Yeah.
Like it really let the person know that you're there for them.
Well, and if you think about it, think about what I said with the subjective answer when you're making it all about you. You were sincerely trying to connect with the person by saying that Dr. Stanley prepped 2 crowns for you,
Yeah.
but you're ignoring their angst. You're basically saying to them, your concern, your nervousness, your anxiety isn't valid because I had a good experience.
Mm-hmm.
So again, what is the preamble before the open-ended question, I think is a huge part of the equation. Huge.
Is there a tone that even if you said it correctly could be perceived in the wrong way? And if there is that the fault of the speaker or the listener?
That's a really good question.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think so. Where my head went to is kind of more body language, maybe even than tone.
Because the example, and I'll read what they wrote word for word. They said,
Hmm.
if I'm hearing you right, what I'm hearing you say is dot dot dot. That was what they
Yeah,
they wrote in their
yeah,
question,
yeah.
which to
So
me doesn't sound condescending, but maybe it could be condescending if, I've been told in the past that I was condescending in how I was speaking, and
yeah,
thank goodness that these people brought it up to me because
yeah,
I probably was, and I just didn't ha and I didn't think I was.
sure, sure. Um, I think as I'm playing out variables and possible scenarios in my brain, I think it could be very much what's surrounding that statement. So is it just, so if I hear what you're saying, you don't want to be here.
Right.
If I hear what you're saying, you're really nervous about this. And so for those who are watching us on YouTube, you saw kind of my posture and I was doing it on
Yeah.
purpose and some of my head movements.
Hmm.
And so I think it can be what's being said around it and the body posture that is with it. Like my dear friend Justin Patton, who was one of my first coaches and gave me a testimonial from my book. He's a body language expert. And so he learned from some, I think, some former FBI agents.
Wow.
And so, body language is so important as well. Like, are you answering that with closed body posture, with your arms crossed or your legs crossed? Or are you more open? Are you, leaning toward them, etc.? I had a very dear friend of mine who's unfortunately no longer with us, who was 6'5".
Mm,
And so he used to purposefully come into the operatory and actually basically kind of do a wall sit in effect
mm,
against
hmm.
the wall. So he would lower his height
Yeah.
because even seated, because he had a very long torso, even
Hmm.
seated, he was taller than the patient.
Right.
So he very much tried to diminish his body height, excuse me, which was very purposeful.
Well, I think there's also a mindset to this. Like if
Yeah,
you're saying this quote, if I'm hearing you right, what I'm hearing you say is X, and you're saying it with true curiosity,
correct.
not trying to prove that they're saying something
Yeah,
wrong or in
yeah,
a certain
yeah.
way, then I think you won't come off as condescending.
And so let me give you two different or additional examples. Oh, so what I'm hearing you say is versus, wow, what I'm hearing you say is
Yeah,
the same
right. I
words.
mean, that is the nuance of tone right there.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Hmm.
maybe I should correct myself. Maybe it's a combination of all things. And I've worked with dentists, I've worked with team members who spontaneously roll their eyes.
Yeah.
And it is really hard to break them of that habit. We're going to Europe later this year, and apparently, if you say in a restaurant, I'll do when you're ordering instead of I'll have, they immediately know you're from the States.
Hmm.
And so I've been trying to train myself lately to say I'll have, and every time I forget about it, and I don't even hear the words coming out of my mouth.
Mm.
And so my husband helps me go, you did it again. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
sorry, waiter, waitress, I'll have.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of habits that we picked up over the years, particularly when it comes to communication, that we may not even be aware of. So it could be a body posture thing, it could be an eye roll thing, it could be a huff thing, like a,
Tone.
yeah, tone, all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think for the person who asked this question, try to have a little more self-awareness with everything around the words. Because it's
Yeah,
not just the words, right? It's
yeah,
the tone, the posture, the movement,
yep.
even the position that you're in. Okay, next question that we have, and again, I'll summarize this because it was kind of a long paragraph question, but it basically said, if someone's true priorities in life are fame, prestige, and wealth,
Hmm.
is this something that could be spun in a positive way to where they could still have a fulfilling life and have wellness in dentistry?
So I'm going to answer by sharing a little bit of research. So
How
Sonia,
weird, very weird of us to
how
do that.
weird of me to
Yeah.
do, yes. So I first came about this when I was reading actually the first book I've ever read on happiness called The Happiness Advantage by Sean Akor. I've talked about this book ad nauseum.
Yep.
In the introduction, he quotes a study by Sonia Lyubomirsky that was a meta-analysis of 200 different studies that comprised 275,000 people worldwide.
Yeah, that's like one of the highest levels of
Yeah.
research that we have.
Yep. So it was different countries, ethnicities, socioeconomic positions, educational levels, societal, political positions, etc., familial positions, children, no children, you name it. And the number one thing that drove happiness was not where they got in life, but the journey of their life itself. And so, and this research has been quoted by many others, and there's other similar pieces of research like the Harvard or the Grant study, which we've talked about before. And so, as Sean Accord talks about, And we're very guilty of this in dentistry, that if we keep looking toward goalposts as a thing to make us happy, when we get there, we will ask ourselves either literally or figuratively, great, now what? And so they've researched this with lottery winners. Again, we've talked about this on the podcast before as well. It's called hedonic adaptation. I know you have a different version of that term,
Yep.
uh, um, where people won lottery, large amounts of money in the lottery. They were very happy for a short period of time. And then they went back to their baseline level of happiness, whatever that was for them. Now, the good news is that baseline is movable through neuroplasticity. And so what I'm going to say to the question as an answer is, if what we're looking for to drive satisfaction as life is the attainment of wealth, prestige, or position, my answer will be no. Because then when you get there, you will keep looking for the next thing. And so those that have seen me lecture, when I get to this point in the lecture, I always say this, and I'm very sincere about it. I say, so do you think I'm happy that I was asked to speak at the Chicago Midwinter or the Seattle Study Club Symposium? Abso-flippin'-lutely. I say to the audience, but what am I happy about? I'm happy about the nights and weekends that I spent studying, the financial resources that I spent to get my certifications, and all of the studying and practicing to be able to present this to you today. That's what I'm happy about. And it may seem like a simple shift, and it is, but once you get to that different place in life, every single thing changes. And what I've noticed is that, and you know this because you're a speaker as well, of course, I used to get a real speaker high. Like
Hmm.
after you're done and it went really well, it's much more metered for me now
Yeah.
because I'm not putting all my eggs in the basket of the presentation necessarily. It's what came before it to be able to present it. So what do you think about all that stuff?
My my thoughts with this, I'm a little torn on this
Yeah.
because I know from the hedonic adaptation in my own life
Hmm.
that you have to have happiness internally, and
Yep.
buying another great car can make you, I mean, I love cars. You guys know
Yeah.
I love cars. It's a passion of mine.
Yeah.
I am I happier because I have my cars? I don't know. When I drive them, I'm happy. It makes me
Sure.
definitely makes me happy, but I don't think anything makes me happier than giving to
Hmm.
others.
Yeah.
I think so. On one hand, I think if you get to a certain fame level, a certain prestige, a certain wealth, you could always be more famous. You could always have
Yeah.
more wealth. You could always have more
Yeah.
prestige. So that is a slippery slope.
Yeah.
However, on the opposite side, I would say that if you can use fame for a positive, or
Sure.
if you can use wealth
Sure.
for a positive, and I think it has to be not helping yourself, it has to be helping others. So, I mean, I can use myself as an example. Am I famous? By no means, but I have a significant amount of dentists that follow me. Now,
You're dental famous, my friend.
yes, right, right, yeah. Yeah, like my son thinks I'm famous because, one person comes up to me at like a
Yeah.
Serona World or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that that has allowed me to spread the word about mental wellness, right?
So what I'm going to say to you is I'm still tracking with you because what we didn't talk about is the whole concept of SPIRE, which is Dr. Tal Ben-Shahar's concept of whole being or happiness, which comes from a very large body of research and work from the Dalai Lama, Helen Keller, Anne Frank, Viktor Frankl, uh, Plato, you name it. And so it's an acronym that describes whole being that drives happiness. And so there are a multitude of elements to it. And what you're describing to me through good works, and I'll call it charity of time or charity of dollars, very much falls into the Spire concept. It's, the S is for spiritual whole being, which is about purpose, meaning, and presence. The P is about physical whole being, treating your body like a vessel. The I is for intellectual whole being, being curious about the world around you. R is for relational whole being, really improving the relations with the people around you. And E is emotional whole being, not looking at everything through a positive lens, but rather allowing our emotions to flow through and flow past us. So, what you're doing through these good works and helping people is you're creating purpose. You're, depending on the situation, helping others with potentially their physical whole being or their intellectual whole being. You're
Yeah.
building relationships. You're filling your cup emotionally. So, I'm with you, my friend. It all tracks when you kind of look into some of the, shall we say, more mainline research and thoughts on this subject today.
Yeah, because I think that wealth, prestige, fame can be looked at very negative, and they can definitely be very negative, but anything can
Oh
be
yeah.
negative and anything can be positive. You know, if you think of someone that makes a big tech company and makes a bunch of money, and then
Mhm.
they start building wells in
Yeah.
Africa and
Yeah.
start, helping homeless children and, start
Yeah.
feeding people that don't have food with all their money, like, hey, wealth did something pretty good for this person, right? So,
Yeah.
or not pretty good for them, for the world.
Well,
So,
look at Taylor Swift. You remember what she did in the middle of the Eras tour? She gave all the bus drivers like $100,000 bonus each,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Just this week, there was a bunch of videos. I forget where she was, but she took her time, went to a hospital to visit kids.
Oh,
And the
I saw
kids are
that.
like, when she walks
Yeah.
in.
Yeah, I
And
was listening to a podcast with Mr. Beast, and he's kind of the
Mhm.
same way.
Yep.
He's made $1 billion or something, but now he's building houses and
Yeah.
schools in Africa and helping a bunch
Yeah.
of people. And so, if I would say you're doing it for the sake of being famous or for the sake of being rich so that you can just
Hmm.
be a glutton for whatever it is you want, then I would say no. I think
Right.
that you won't be able to have wellness. But
Yeah.
if you're doing it for the right purpose, I think it's possible.
Yes. And what I would say is, you know, that might be different than the tenor of the question, though, I
Yeah.
think, you know?
Yeah.
So,
All right, let's do maybe one or two more,
okay.
and we can do another episode like this another time. Okay, let's do this one. This is another one that we got. So, Martin, the question is, what do you tell dentists who feel like they're stuck in survival mode? I've
Mm,
tried CE, coaching, and even therapy, but I still feel exhausted and uninspired. And thank you for the question, by the way,
yeah.
for the
That's
doctor that wrote
that's
that.
that's a really heady question. I mean, a lot of the clients I work with kind of come to me that way.
Hmm.
Um, and ironically enough, it kind of goes back to some of the Spire elements about how are we drawing purpose and meaning to our lives? How are we honoring our bodies like a vessel and not burning the candle at both ends? How are we, being curious instead of judgmental about the world
So
around
much stuff.
us?
There's so much stuff that we talk about in Lightside Live.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And I actually think with this question too, I think that this doctor needs some specific things to dentistry. So, for example, they
Mhm.
tried CE,
Yeah.
but I'm guessing that's clinical CE, right? They
Yep.
tried coaching, but I'm guessing that coach has no idea what it's like to be a dentist.
Yeah.
I would say, selfishly, that if they did coaching with you, that it may be different because you understand the dental side, the
Hmm.
practice management side, the clinical side, and the
Yeah.
happiness, well-being,
Yeah.
wellness side.
And it's not just about the CE or the coaching or anything that you're doing. One of my favorite quotes is education without action is entertainment. And I would say coaching without action is,
Yeah,
you know, whatever you want to call it.
yeah.
Um, I truly think that the first part is really getting honest with yourself about what it is that drives joy. And so you and I have talked about this for years about somebody comes up to us and says, I really hate dentistry. And it's like, well, do you hate dentistry or what is it about dentistry you dislike?
Yeah.
And so for so many of us, it's the stuff that we dislike that we end up focusing on that's driving the overarching soundtrack in our brain that's causing us to focus on that negative stuff that is keeping us, let's call it what it is, miserable.
Yeah, and let's look at some of the wording that they used in there. They said, but I still feel exhausted
Yeah.
and uninspired.
Yeah.
So the first one, exhausted, to me, gives the sense of physicality, physically
Yeah.
exhausted.
Hmm.
And I know for me, when I was in my deepest point with burnout, it was because my health was in a poor place,
Yeah.
meaning I wasn't exercising. I
Hmm.
didn't prioritize my sleep. Martin and
Hmm.
I were just talking before we recorded that he's got
Yeah.
his Aura ring tracking his
Yeah.
sleep. Yeah. Um, I wasn't eating right. I wasn't drinking water
Yep.
enough. I wasn't making myself a priority. So for this doctor, I would say first get your physical
Hmm.
health under control. And that's not a small task,
No.
depending on how bad their physical health is, right?
Yeah.
But what I'll say, and we've seen this all the time with people that have gone through our courses, is when you start making your physical health a priority, you
Hmm.
show up better, you're less reactive, you
Hmm.
look better, your case acceptance goes up, you become a better leader, you're more inspiring.
Yeah.
And think of the downstream effects of that. And
Yep.
that's with doing no training on communication and leadership and all that. Just
Amen.
physically showing up better. It's like if you're going to go into a fight, how should you show up to the fight? What's the best way to show up? Right? You
Hmm.
know it's going to be bad. You're going to
Yeah.
get hit. But do you want to show up like with a bunch of muscle and you've got all of the respiratory ability to survive this? Yes, you're still going to get
Hmm.
hit. It's still going to be bad. Or do you want to show up and you're out of breath and you're overweight and you
Yep.
can't move and you're sore? Like dentistry is hard.
Yep.
Showing up to a practice and doing dentistry is always going to be hard. There's
Yes.
always going to be challenges. So showing up at the best you can be
Hmm.
will not bring you down as far.
Well, and what I would say too is the best you can be on some days will be 110%, and other days will be 40.
Yeah.
And that's all of that's
Yep.
okay because
Uh-huh.
that's just the way it is. I think for me, I know when I was at Spear, MTS Manchi used to say this all the time. I don't know if he originated this or he got it from somewhere else, but I love it. You ready? If you show me your calendar and your checkbook, I'll tell you what's important to you.
Hmm.
And so, shameless plug for my online course in lesson two is a time and task audit. Like if based on the question, I'm hearing a very deep sense of exhaustion and um, just not knowing where to turn. And
Yes.
so I agree with you 100% about getting your health in order. And my mind immediately went to, okay, would that person then look at us and go, well, how the heck am I supposed to do that? So I think the first thing to do would be really to look at what is comprising your days and spend 2 weeks literally logging how it is you're spending your time.
Hmm.
Then you can look at, okay, well, based upon, this activity, this activity, this activity, which of these activities are bringing me joy or are bringing me less angst, depending on your situation, to start to figure out where those challenging situations, times, procedures, interactions live so that you can start to craft a different way so that you're not always exhausted and feeling like there's nowhere to turn. So I think the first thing is to really get serious about understanding how you're spending your time to then determine how you might be able to change.
It's the same step zero that we always talk about. It's realize,
Yeah,
awareness,
100%.
self-awareness.
100%.
You have to know, why are you feeling exhausted?
Hmm.
Why are
Hmm.
you feeling uninspired?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's great that you've already recognized that you're feeling exhausted, first of all.
Hmm.
That's a
Hmm.
great first step. But now we have to figure out the why
Yeah.
and then take the audit and see what's causing this. This is like the identify
Hmm.
module, really, that
Yeah.
when we go through in Light Side Live.
Yeah.
And then, go through purpose and all those other things
Hmm.
to figure this out.
Absolutely. I
Should
mean,
we do one more?
yeah, I just want to say one thing real quick.
Yes.
Like I did this recently. I think I mentioned this a couple episodes ago. I realized that not only do I hate doing my books, my bookkeeping, it takes me a lot of time. And so I literally tracked how much time I was taking doing this and compared that to my hourly rate for coaching. And I realized I am wasting so much time and money by doing it myself. So
Yeah.
you gave me a wonderful referral, and now that bookkeeper is working with me, and my level of happiness is up here because I don't have to do it anymore.
Yeah.
And because I was still very detail oriented, like I wanted
Yes.
everything accounted for, but I hated doing it.
Hmm.
And I've just offloaded this to someone else whose expertise lies in that area.
Yeah.
And I'm so much happier for it. But
Yep.
again, I did the analysis to really understand whether this was a sound financial decision. And boy, oh boy, it was more than sound. Like it would be stupid not to do it, basically.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, last question.
yep.
They said, this doctor said, I've built a successful practice. All right, good for them. But I'm starting to feel like it's all I am.
Yeah.
How do I create an identity outside of dentistry without losing my edge professionally?
Yeah.
What a great question.
That's a great question. And honestly, I would answer to some degree similarly to what I just said. Particularly if you build a successful practice, you likely have more team members than you did to begin with. You may have other associates, may or may not. I would really take a really long, hard look at the responsibilities you're choosing to do now that you've built this, and I quote, successful practice. Are you, I'm just making this up, still paying the bills? Are you still doing payroll? Are you still, whatever the case may be, to free up yourself to be able to have some additional time to be able to engage in things that bring you joy, right?
I don't, I disagree with you a little bit on this one
Okay.
because this is of course inferring the question, but I feel like it's not so much of I'm doing all this stuff in my practice, which is why I
Hmm.
don't have an identity.
Yeah.
I think it's just the last, and they didn't say how long it's taken them to build this, but I'm gonna guess we're 10 to 20 years in
Sure. Sure.
to build this successful practice, and that's what they've put their entire focus on for 20 years.
Okay.
And now I think they're saying, I want to be more than just this dentist that has successful practice. What else can I be known for?
Got it. Okay.
So,
No, I
and
think that's fair.
yeah, so I think this is really an identity crisis,
Hmm.
which, hey, for this doctor, you know who you are who's listening to this. You're not the only one.
No.
I
Hmm.
was there too.
Yeah.
A lot of us have been there. Martin went through this, when
Yep.
he went through his disability, his whole
Yep.
life was being a dentist. And I think that's because it takes so long for us to get our
Yeah.
education. And then it takes so long to get to a point of where we build a practice or we buy a practice
Hmm.
and we transition that and we make it successful. Even if you're an associate and
Yeah.
you're a career associate and that's what you do and all your friends know you is that you're, John the dentist or Sally the
Hmm.
dentist, that it's nice to be known for something else.
Yep.
But it's right what Martin is saying in that in order to even explore those other opportunities, you have to have the time for them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting that this question came up because one of my current clients that I'm actively working with had the same exact kind of thing. And we were literally working through, what do I do with my time?
Mm,
But and so we did a whole exercise around, well, what brings you joy? What are the things you want to do? What are the things that maybe you used to do that you're not doing now? And so um, I think a lot of it also has to do with the fact that we as dentists, and I used to see this at Spear all the time, that's all we talk about
yeah.
is teeth.
Hmm.
And there's a lot more out there than teeth. And
Yeah.
there's no, I'm not casting aspersions on passion, far from it. But by the same token, there is more to life than what it is you do at the chair. There just
Yeah.
is, whether we like it or not.
Yeah. There's a few exercises that we do in Lightside Live where we go through and think about what do you want your grandkids
Yep.
to say about you.
Or the value
And
sort exercise.
that's right.
Yeah.
And the goal is so that your kids don't say, "Oh, grandpa or grandma, wow, they did such amazing implants. I mean, their implants were
Hmm.
just incredible.
Yeah.
I would hope that they're saying nicer things to you, things that don't incorporate your profession.
Yeah.
How you took care of them, how you cared for others, how you supported them, how you were a great listener, how you made them cupcakes on their birthday. And like,
Yep.
it kind of goes back to what we talked about with wealth. Is like, it really is serving others. I mean, the
Hmm.
greatest joy comes from serving others, I think.
Yeah. No,
And
100%.
it's nice when it's not your profession. It's
Yeah.
nice when there's not money exchanged,
True.
because I could see people saying, well, I'm serving my patients all the time. I'm supporting my team.
Yeah.
But I think it's nice when money is not exchanged. There's something so human about that.
Agreed. Agreed.
Doing
Agreed.
something just because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. No, these are great questions, all of them.
These are great questions. And we've
Yeah.
got a few more, so we may do another episode.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe next episode or maybe in a
Yeah.
few more. We'll space these out. But these are fun. Keep sending us these questions. For those of you that are going through a hard time, there's resources out there. Of course, this podcast is a great one. So if you're listening to this podcast, you're on the right track. You also have our Lightside Live. You have my online course. You have Martin's online course. You have Martin's coaching. Come see us live, something like that. There are things out there to help you with this.
Yep.
So if you found this helpful and maybe you have a colleague or a friend that listens to this podcast too, and they haven't heard this episode, send it to them. That's one of the things you can do to help us grow this podcast. And we're here trying to give you guys a bunch of free content because we do have paid things that we do, but this is, of course, totally free and sponsor free at the time. So thanks for listening to Wellness and Dentistry, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Bye-bye.